The fork was halfway to my mouth when I tasted it. Not the apple, not the cinnamon, not the buttery crust that had been my favorite thing in the world since I was 6 years old. Metal, faint, almost invisible, the kind of taste most people would dismiss as a weird aftertaste or a filling in their tooth acting up. But I'm not most people. I'm a toxicologist. I analyze poison for a living, and I know exactly what metal tastes like when it's hiding in your food. I put the fork down, looked at the pie on my plate, golden and perfect and steaming, like something from a cookbook photo. Then I looked at my mother sitting across the table, watching me, waiting. That patient smile on her face that I just had seen 1,000 times before. Take another bite, sweetheart. You've barely touched it. If you've ever had a gut feeling that the person feeding you wasn't trying to help you, hit subscribe right now. Because what I discovered over the next 72 hours changed everything I thought I knew about my family, about love, about the woman who raised me, and I almost didn't survive to tell you about it. My name is Claire. I'm 31 years old. I work at a forensic laboratory in the city, analyzing samples that help police solve crimes. Mostly, I deal with the ugly stuff. Drug overdoses, suspicious deaths, cases where someone ended up dead and nobody knows why. I've seen what poison does to a body, seen the damage it leaves behind, seen families destroyed by substances they never knew existed until it was too late. But I never thought I'd find it in my own mother's kitchen. Let me take you back 3 weeks before that dinner. Back to the phone call that started everything. Actually, no, that's not right. It started long before the phone call. It started when I was a child. I just didn't know it yet. I grew up in a house that smelled like cinnamon and fresh bread. My mother was the kind of woman who made everything from scratch. Pies and cookies and elaborate meals that took all day to prepare. She believed that food was love, that every dish she made carried a piece of her heart. At least, that's what she told me. The house was beautiful too, Victorian. 3 stories, wrap-around porch with rocking chairs that creaked in the evening breeze, rose garden in the backyard that she tended like it was a child. From the outside, we looked like the perfect family. Mother, father, daughter, living the American dream in a house that belonged on a postcard. But perfect families have a way of hiding things, and ours was hiding something that would take me 25 years to discover. My father got sick when I was 12. It started small: fatigue, confusion, forgetting where he put his keys or what day of the week it was. The doctors said it was early onset dementia. Rare, but not unheard of. Sometimes the brain just starts shutting down and nobody knows why. My mother took care of him, fed him, bathed him, sat by his bed and read to him even when he couldn't understand the words anymore. By the time I was 15, he couldn't recognize my face. By the time I was 18, he was in a facility, alive but empty, a body with nothing left inside. I used to visit him every Sunday, sit in that sterile room and hold his hand and talk to him about my life, even though I knew he couldn't hear me. My mother said it was a tragedy, said some families just have bad luck, said we had to be grateful for the time we had together. I believed her. For 17 years, I believed her. 3 weeks before the pie, I got a phone call. My mother's voice on the other end, shaky, scared, not like her at all. "Claire, something's wrong. I had a dizzy spell this morning. Almost fell down the stairs. The doctor wants to run some tests, but I'm frightened. Can you come home? Just for a few days. I don't want to be alone." I was in the middle of a big case at work. Bodies piling up. Deadlines pressing. The kind of situation where taking time off feels impossible. But she was my mother, and she sounded terrified. And what kind of daughter says no to that? I packed a bag, told my boss I needed a week, drove 4 hours to the house where I grew up. She met me at the door with a hug that lasted too long and eyes that looked relieved in a way I didn't understand. "Thank God you're here. I've been so worried. Come inside. I made your favorite. Apple pie, sitting on the counter, still warm." I should have known right then, should have seen the pattern I had been missing my entire life. But I was tired, and she was my mother, and the pie smelled like childhood, so I ate it. The first 3 days were fine. Normal, easy, almost pleasant. We fell back into old routines. Breakfast together in the sunny kitchen, walks in the garden, evenings on the porch watching the fireflies come out. She seemed healthy. Whatever dizzy spell she'd had must have passed. I started thinking I could go back to work early, get back to my real life. But on day 4, I woke up feeling wrong. Not sick, exactly, just off. Like someone had wrapped my brain in cotton and filled my joints with sand. I figured I was coming down with something. Stress, travel, the usual suspects. I took some aspirin, drank some water, went down to breakfast. My mother had made pancakes, bacon, fresh squeezed orange juice. Eat up, sweetheart. You look pale. I wasn't hungry, but I ate anyway. Because refusing would have been rude. Because she had gone to so much trouble. Because that's what good daughters do. The fog in my head got thicker. By noon, I could barely keep my eyes open. By evening, I couldn't remember what day it was. This is where my training kicked in. See, most people, when they feel sick, just assume they're sick. Virus, bacteria, bad luck. They don't think about the alternative. But I think about the alternative every day. It's my job. Lying in bed that night, too exhausted to move, but too wired to sleep, I started running through the symptoms in my head. Fatigue, cognitive fog, joint pain, metallic taste that came and went. Could be a dozen different things. Could be nothing at all. But there was one possibility that kept nagging at me. One explanation that fit a little too well. Heavy metal poisoning, specifically thallium. The poisoner's poison. Tasteless, odorless, almost impossible to detect unless you're looking for it. Causes exactly the symptoms I was experiencing. I told myself I was being paranoid. Occupational hazard. When you work with poison every day, you start seeing it everywhere. But I couldn't shake the feeling. So I did something I never thought I'd have to do. I started testing myself. I had a kit in my bag. Field testing equipment. The kind I take to crime scenes when I need quick results before the full lab analysis. Not as accurate as proper laboratory work, but good enough to detect major toxins if they're present in significant quantities. I waited until my mother was asleep, crept into the bathroom, locked the door. I tested my blood, my urine, my hair. The results came back in 15 minutes, and my hands started shaking. Thallium, present. Elevated levels consistent with repeated low-dose exposure over several days. Someone was poisoning me. I sat on that bathroom floor until the sun came up, trying to process, trying to think, trying to figure out who could possibly want to hurt me and how they were doing it. There were only 2 people in this house, me and my mother, but that was insane. My mother loved me. She had raised me. She had held my hand through every difficult moment of my life. She had been my rock when my father got sick and my comfort when he had to go to the facility. She couldn't be the one doing this. Could she? I started paying attention, really paying attention to everything. What I ate, what I drank, when my symptoms got better, when they got worse. The pattern emerged within 48 hours. Every time I ate something, my mother prepared my symptoms intensified. Every time I secretly disposed of food and replaced it with something I made myself, I felt slightly better. It wasn't conclusive. Could have been coincidence. Could have been my paranoid brain seeing patterns that weren't there. But it was enough to make me dig deeper. I pretended to eat, pushed food around my plate, hid pieces in my napkin, claimed I wasn't hungry. My mother watched me with concerned eyes. "Claire, sweetheart, you have to keep your strength up. You've been looking so tired lately. Here, I made soup. It will help." I took the bowl, thanked her, waited until she left the room. Then I poured half of it into a specimen container and hid it in my bag. That night, I tested it. Thallium, trace amounts. Not enough to kill quickly, just enough to make someone very, very sick over a long period of time. I want you to understand something about this moment. This is when most people would confront, would scream, would demand answers. But I couldn't do that. Not yet. Because confronting her would tip her off, would give her time to hide evidence, would turn into a she said situation that would go nowhere. I needed proof. Real proof. The kind that would hold up in court. So I kept pretending. Kept playing the sick daughter. Kept letting her think her plan was working. and I started searching. The house I grew up in has 17 rooms. I know because I used to play hide and seek with my father when I was little. Used to know every closet and crawl space and hidden corner. But there were places I had never looked. Places that were always locked. Places my mother said were storage and not worth exploring. I explored them now. Every night after she went to bed, I crept through the house with a flashlight, opening doors, checking drawers, looking for anything that would explain why my mother was slowly killing me. On the fourth night, I found the room behind the pantry, a door I had always assumed led to the basement, a door that was always locked, a door my mother said led to nothing but old Christmas decorations. It didn't lead to Christmas decorations. The room was small, maybe 10 feet by 10 feet. No windows, just one bare bulb hanging from the ceiling, and shelves, floor-to-ceiling shelves lined with bottles and jars and containers, all labeled in my mother's neat handwriting, all organized alphabetically like everything else she did. Most of them were ordinary, herbs, spices, canning supplies. But on the bottom shelf in the back corner, I found a lockbox. Old, metal. The kind of thing people used to keep important documents in before everything went digital. I picked the lock. Not hard, just a simple tumbler mechanism that gave way with a hairpin and some patience. Inside were 3 things: a bottle of white powder with no label, a leather journal filled with dates and numbers, and a photograph of my father from before he got sick. I opened the journal first. The entries went back over 20 years, starting just after my parents got married. September 1998. R showing signs of independence. Talking about job in California. Started supplementation. Half dose in morning coffee. October 1998. R more compliant. Dropped California idea. Supplementation working. Increased to full dose. The entries continued, year after year. Documenting doses, tracking symptoms, recording results. By 2005, the entries had changed. R no longer functional. Moved to facility. Supplementation complete. Success. R was my father, Richard. She had been poisoning him for 7 years before he went to that facility. 7 years of slow, steady doses that destroyed his brain piece by piece, and she had written it all down like a science experiment. I kept reading. The journal had a gap after 2005. Empty pages, like she had stopped for a while. Then the entries started again. 3 weeks ago, C returned home, showing signs of leaving permanently. London job offer, started supplementation. Half dose in evening tea. C was me. Day 2, C complaining of fatigue. Good sign. Increased dose in morning juice. Day 4, C barely able to function. Perfect. She won't be going anywhere now. Day 6, C suspicious about food. Must be more careful. Switch to supplements and vitamins. I was reading a real-time account of my own poisoning, written by my mother, in her perfect, neat handwriting. I don't know how long I sat in that room. Minutes, hours. Time stopped making sense. Everything I thought I knew about my life was collapsing. Every memory, every moment, every loving gesture from the woman who raised me, all of it was a lie. She had poisoned my father until he couldn't leave her. Now she was doing the same thing to me. I took photos of everything. The journal, the bottles, the lockbox, every piece of evidence I could document. Then I put everything back exactly the way I found it, closed the door, went back to my room, and I planned. I couldn't go to the police yet. I know that sounds crazy. I had evidence, I had documentation, I had proof of 2 decades of poisoning. But I also knew how these cases worked. I saw them in my job all the time. The daughter accusing the sweet old mother, the toxicologist who could have planted evidence, the journal that could have been forged. Defense attorneys would tear it apart, claim I was mentally ill, claim I was trying to steal inheritance, claim anything except the truth. I needed more. I needed witnesses. I needed her to confess. There was one other person who might know something. Dolores. She had been our housekeeper since before I was born, came 3 times a week to clean and help with laundry, had been around for everything. If my mother had been poisoning people for 20 years, Dolores must have seen something, must have suspected something, must have noticed patterns that didn't add up. I found her in the kitchen the next morning, washing dishes, humming to herself. "Dolores, can I talk to you?" She looked up. Something flickered in her eyes. Fear, maybe, or recognition. "What about honey?" I kept my voice low. My mother was in the garden. We had maybe 10 minutes. I know what she's been doing. I found the room behind the pantry. I found the journal. Dolores stopped washing. Her hands went still in the soapy water. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Yes, you do. You've been here for 30 years. You must have seen something. Please, I need to understand." She didn't say anything for a long moment, just stood there staring at the sink. Then she spoke. "Your mother is a very particular woman. I know. She likes things a certain way, likes to keep her family close, doesn't handle change well. Is that why she poisoned my father?" Dolores flinched, like I had slapped her. I never saw her put anything in his food, never caught her in the act, but I saw what happened to him, watched him fade away year after year, and I knew it wasn't natural. "Why didn't you say anything?" "Because I was scared." She turned to look at me, eyes wet, face crumpled. "Because she told me if I ever talked, she would make sure my family back home suffered. My sister, my nieces, she has connections, Claire. People who do things for money. I couldn't risk it. She's poisoning me now. The same thing she did to him. I know. I've been watching, trying to figure out how to warn you without her finding out." She reached into her pocket, pulled out a small plastic bag. "I've been collecting samples from the food she makes, from the vitamins she gives you. I was going to send them to a lab anonymously, try to get someone to investigate without putting my family at risk." I took the bag. Inside were small containers labeled with dates and contents. "You've been documenting this for 3 weeks since you got here." I knew what she was planning the moment she called you, the way she smiled when she hung up the phone, like she had won something. 2 witnesses now, me and Dolores, both with evidence, both with documentation. It still might not be enough for a conviction, but it was enough to start an investigation. Enough to get the police interested. Enough to make someone look closer. I decided to leave that night, get out of the house, get to safety, take my evidence to the authorities and let them handle it from there. But I made one mistake. I underestimated how closely she was watching. I was packing my bag when she appeared in my doorway. "Going somewhere, sweetheart?" Her voice was calm, pleasant, the same voice she had used my entire life. But her eyes were different. Flat, empty, like looking at a shark. I thought I'd go back to the city for a few days, check on work, make sure everything's okay, without saying goodbye, without finishing your treatment. Treatment! That's what she called it. Treatment. I'm feeling much better, actually. I think the rest did me good. She stepped into the room, closed the door behind her. "You've been in my private room. I can tell. Things were moved, not by much, but I noticed these things, Claire. I always notice." My heart was pounding, but I kept my voice steady. "I don't know what you're talking about. Don't lie to me. Not now. Not after everything I've done for you. Everything you've done for me. You've been poisoning me, just like you poisoned Dad." She smiled. Actually smiled. "I've been keeping you. There's a difference." She sat down on the edge of my bed, casual, relaxed, like we were having a normal conversation. "Your father was going to leave me. Did you know that? Before you were born. He got a job offer in California, wanted to move across the country, wanted to start fresh." She smoothed the blanket with her hand, gentle, methodical. I couldn't let that happen. I had given up everything for him. My career, my friends, my family, and he was going to throw it all away for some job on the coast. "So you poisoned him. I made him need me." She looked up at me. No shame, no guilt, just that flat, empty stare. And it worked. For 12 beautiful years he stayed. He was happy. We were happy. We were a family. He wasn't happy. He was dying. He was home. That's what matters. She stood up, walked toward me slowly. "And now you're trying to leave too, just like he did. That job in London, the apartment you've been looking at, the life you're planning that doesn't include me." I backed up until I hit the wall. "You can't keep me here forever. I can try." She was close now, close enough to touch. I've gotten very good at it over the years. The trick is patience. Small doses, gradual decline. By the time anyone notices, it's too late. I'm not dad. I know what you're doing. I have evidence. Evidence can disappear. Witnesses can be silenced. And sick daughters can have accidents. She reached out, touched my face, gentle, almost tender. I don't want to hurt you, Claire. I love you. You're my daughter, but I won't let you leave me. Not like you tried to. Not ever. I don't know what would have happened next. Maybe she would have force-fed me more poison. Maybe she would have locked me in that house until I was too weak to escape. Maybe she would have done something worse, but we never found out, because that's when Dolores walked in. She was holding a phone, recording, getting everything my mother had just said on video. I called the police 15 minutes ago. They're on their way. My mother's face changed, that calm mask cracking, revealing something panicked underneath. You, she turned on Dolores. You stupid woman. After everything I've done for you, after all the years I've kept your family safe, you kept them hostage. Dolores was shaking, but her voice was strong. You threatened them, controlled them, just like you control everyone else. But I'm done being scared of you. Sirens in the distance, getting closer. My mother looked at the window, then at the door, then at me. This isn't over, Claire. You'll see. You'll come back to me eventually. They always do. She walked out of the room, calm, composed. Even now, I heard her footsteps on the stairs, heard the front door open, then heard the screech of tires, the crunch of metal, the screams. She walked in front of a car, the police car actually, racing up the driveway with sirens blaring. She stepped right out in front of it like she didn't see it coming. Or maybe she did. Maybe she decided that if she couldn't control the ending, she would choose her own. I'll never know for sure. She didn't die immediately. 3 days in the ICU. Machines keeping her alive while her brain swelled and her organs failed. I sat by her bed. Not out of love. Not out of forgiveness. Just because I needed to see. Needed to watch her fade the way my father had faded. Needed to know that it was really ending. On the 3rd day, she opened her eyes, looked at me with something that might have been recognition, tried to speak, her lips moving. No sound coming out. I leaned closer, close enough to hear the whisper. I just wanted you to stay. Then she was gone. The investigation took months. They found everything. The journal, the poison, the records of purchases going back decades, evidence of at least 3 other people she had slowly killed over the years. Neighbors, friends, anyone who threatened to take away the people she considered hers. My father is still in that facility. The damage too extensive to reverse. But at least now he has a diagnosis, has doctors who understand what happened to him, has a chance at whatever quality of life is still possible. I visit him every Sunday, sit in that sterile room, hold his hand, tell him about my week. Sometimes I think he understands. Sometimes I think he's just glad someone is finally telling him the truth. Dolores and I stayed friends. She was the one who saved me, the one who gathered evidence when I couldn't, the one who called the police when it mattered. I helped her bring her family to the States, got them away from whoever my mother had been using to threaten them, set them up in a little house not far from mine. She doesn't work as a housekeeper anymore. She doesn't have to. Here's the thing. Nobody tells you about surviving something like this. You don't get closure. Not really. My mother is dead. The woman who poisoned my father, who poisoned me, who controlled everyone around her with threats and manipulation and slow-acting toxins. She's gone. She can't hurt anyone else. But I still have questions, still have memories I can't trust, still have moments where I wonder if the mother I thought I had ever existed at all. Was any of it real? The bedtime stories? The birthday parties? The way she held me when I cried? Or was all of it just another form of control? Another way to keep me close, keep me dependent, keep me hers? I'll never know. And I've learned to live with that. I kept the house. I know that sounds insane. Why would I want to live in the place where she tried to kill me? But it's also the place where I grew up, where my father taught me to ride a bike, where I learned to cook and read and dream about the future. I'm not going to let her poison take that away from me too. So I gutted the kitchen, ripped out everything she ever touched, replaced it with new cabinets and new appliances and new memories. I found the hidden room behind the pantry, turned it into a wine cellar, filled it with bottles I chose myself. And every single thing I eat in this house I test first. Old habit. Can't shake it. Probably never will. I went back to work after 6 months, same lab, same job, analyzing poison for people who need answers. But now I specialize in domestic cases, the ones where someone suspects their spouse or parent or caretaker is slowly making them sick, the ones that look like mine. 12 convictions in the last 2 years, 12 people who thought they could control their families through chemistry. Every single one of them reminded me of my mother. Every single one of them thought love was a cage. So here's what I need you to take away from this. Love doesn't make you weaker. Real. Love makes you stronger, gives you roots that help you grow, wings that let you fly. If someone's affection comes with conditions, if their care makes you smaller instead of bigger, if you feel sicker and more confused every time you're around them, that's not love. That's consumption. And you deserve to walk away. Pay attention to how you feel, not how they tell you you should feel, not what they say is normal, how your body actually responds when you're in their presence. Fatigue that doesn't make sense. Fog that never lifts. The metallic taste of something that shouldn't be there. These are warning signs. Listen to them. Trust them, even when the person triggering them is someone you're supposed to love unconditionally, especially then. My mother thought she was keeping us safe, thought that controlling us was the same as loving us, that making us dependent was the same as making us family. She was wrong, and she died without ever understanding why. I made apple pie last week. First time since everything happened. Stood in my new kitchen with my new appliances and made it from scratch. Same recipe she used, the one she taught me when I was 6 years old. But I left out her special ingredient. And you know what? It tasted better. If this story meant something to you, I want to hear about it. Drop a comment. Tell me about the moment you realized someone's love was actually a cage. The moment you decided to break free. Your story might help someone else find the courage to put down the fork. And if you haven't subscribed yet, this is your sign. Hit that button. Turn on notifications, because there are more stories coming. More warnings about the poison that hides in the people we trust most. Until next time, test what you're being fed. Trust your instincts, and never let anyone convince you that needing them is the same as loving them. The meal isn't worth the price.